And good evening again, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Under the Radar. Uh,
Highlanders,
I'm
Highlander
your
fever.
Chad Sherwood, and over there yelling about the NJIT Highlanders, streaming to us from from Provo, Utah, is David Griggs, who right now, David, we thought you were going to be at the game, at the Holy War, streaming to us from the game.
Yes,
I see you on your couch back in your room, though. What's going on?
I lost my tickets.
Lost your tickets.
Well,
Uh,
when it's a dry campus, I mean, again, it's a dry campus, and they found it, Chad. You
and
said not to try to sneak it in, but they found it.
And it has nothing to do with that NJIT gear that you were trying to wear to the game, also.
It it it
As he
does
takes
not.
another drink. Okay.
Yes, it does. It does not. I don't know why, but screw the Holy War. We'll get to that later. We are excited. We are excited about the team of the people, and that team is NJIT. Are we
Uh,
not?
we, as a country, as Americans, believe in independence. And
Yes.
what better way to express our love for a country than to support the only independent team in the entire world, the
Yes.
NJIT Highlanders?
Yes, and they've had quite a week. We got to it earlier on our other show, their big upset win at Michigan, and then the other night, real special moment. They're at home against St. Francis College from Brooklyn. Won in exciting fashion. Had a really good, really energetic crowd that stormed the court. To see that kind of a following for a program that hasn't had a rich history, it's fun to watch a program build its history. Now, I understand that I don't want to be misunderstood in what we're doing here, like, because I can see how some would think of it being disingenuous or mocking. It really isn't. I mean, look at the context of our show. It's a fun and silly show. We have a puppet that gets kicked out of BYU and drinking and all of that. So we're having fun with it, but really what it is, NJIT, and Chad is going to explain this a little bit in a second, is in a very unique situation. That is why we're interested. That's why we're supporting them. We're not making fun of them. We're not being disingenuous. I mean, we both have been around sports. We both have a passion for it, and it takes a lot of pride to get out there, not be in a conference, and give that kind of effort every night like those kids do. I was so happy for them this week what they did, and there's nothing disingenuous about it at all. We are really interested in them. They're in a unique situation, and even though we have a lot of fun with that, it's not meant to be mocking.
No, we are not mocking them. I honestly have been following this NJIT program from the day that they decided to announce that they were going up to D1, because the first thing I said is, wait, I live in New Jersey. Who the heck is NJIT?
Right.
Did some research, found out a little bit about the team. They made a move up. They took their 4 transitional years very slowly. Um, During that transitional years, their first full season of D1 games was in the 06-07 season. Their last win of that season came on February 19th of '07. They then proceeded to lose what I believe was an NCAA record, 51 straight games, went
Yeah.
0-29 in '08, did not win in the following season until January 21st of '09, so it was almost 2 full calendar years without a win.
Yeah, about 23 months. Oh, God. Yeah.
And they were kind of the laughing stock of the country at that point.
Yeah.
Jim Engels had come in that '08-09 season, got them their one victory on January 21st of that year against Bryant. Then they went from 1-30 in the '08-09 season to 10-21 in the '09-10 season. Huge 9-win improvement. They also joined the Great West Conference. For those that have followed us, or those that may have heard about us back when the Great West Conference was out there. David, you know this well. I was a huge supporter of the Great West Conference. I
Yeah.
loved it. We would be talking during championship week, during our mock committees, and everybody would be sitting there watching the ACC tournament and the SEC. I see great games going on in the Great West Conference tournament. I remember the 2011 Great West Conference tournament, 7 games, combined margin of victory of 7 points, I think, over those 7 games. It
Yeah,
was.
every game either went in the overtime or had a margin of victory of 2 points or less. It was the most exciting conference tournament of all time. Unfortunately, there was no automatic bid for the winner to the NCAA tournament. But
no, there wasn't. What there was is the winner of that tournament did get an automatic bid into the CIT, which is the tournament for the smaller conferences. NJIT was a member of the Great West for every season that it existed, all the way through the 2012-2013 season, where they actually went 6-2 in conference, won the conference regular season title, got upset by 1 point by Houston Baptist in their first game in the Great West Conference tournament. That was the year they went 16-13 overall. I thought they had a shot at a CIT bid. The CIT did not take a second Great West team. They only took the conference tournament champion that year. That was the closest NJIT has ever made to come to playing in a postseason tournament.
right.
NJIT this year, for the first time, actually last year and this year, has been an independent. Last year they had a pretty good year as an independent. Went 13-16.
Right.
A couple of games that really could have gone any way. They had a 3-point loss to Brooklyn, for example. They had a real close loss to Central Connecticut last year. The UMass Lowell, who's been a thorn in their side last year and this year, they lost to. But they really could have gotten an at-large bid last year. They could have got to 500 last year, and I think the CIT would have taken them. This year, we really looked at them with their top players back, with Damon Lynn back, with Kai Howard there. This team that we really thought that they had a shot at getting to 500 this season, getting that CIT bid, huge stepping stone for the conference. Plus, they did something else this year. They scheduled 2 teams that looked like they were going to be top 25 teams on the road, a game at Michigan and a game at Villanova.
And an additional one, albeit not a top 25 team, but still a high-powered opponent, the game at Marquette. And they played very well against Marquette. Like, we were really excited during that. I remember, like, you and I think, were both home for Thanksgiving and calling each other, and it's like, oh, my God, turn it on. Our adopted team is going to win. This is great. But NJIT, for everything that's working against them, and Lord knows there's a lot of things working against them, not getting into a conference, their previous conference breaking up before it maintained automatic qualifier status, has gone out these last 2 years and played their guts out. And it's a unique situation. It's a situation we're having fun with, but we really are supporting them, and we're happy at the progress that they're making. And they should feel good about beating Michigan. They should feel good about beating St. Francis College, one of the better teams, the preseason favorite, by the way, to win the NEC, a league that honestly should take a serious look at NJIT. And I'm glad they got to experience that. I'm glad their fans got to experience that. It was we're happy for them. We really are.
The biggest thing working against NJIT is their facilities. Their basketball arena only has seats on one side. They had just about 1,400 people in there for the St. Francis game. I believe that is pretty much capacity for that arena they have, and there was probably they probably were down to standing room only at that point. With an upgraded facility there, they've got an arena. There's a pro arena there in Newark. I don't know why they're not trying to get their games in there. And if they could get half their games, there at a real legitimate arena, there's no reason why a major conference wouldn't take them. But I think a major conference right now goes in and sees an arena that looks like a glorified high school gym, probably not as nice as some high school gyms that are out there. And same with their other sports facilities. Now there is a major project underway up in Newark there to put in brand new facilities for everything. Once that's done, I think a conference would jump on this team. But since that is in the works, I really think a conference should take this team, whether it's the NEC, the America East, the Metro Atlantic might be a bit of a stretch, but one of those conferences.
Right, and the reason the Metro Atlantic is a stretch is just the type of institution. I believe it's all Catholic schools. Is it not, or is it?
As far as I know, not certain on a couple of schools there if they're Catholic. Not certain on it's Monmouth or Quinnipiac if they are Catholic schools.
Okay, and they may not be, but it's not your state institutions. Institutionally, I don't think they're a fit. But yeah, the Metro Atlantic could. I think it would be good for them. I'd be really happy if they got into that. I'd be happy to go. They'll go anywhere. Really, they were in the Great West, and they're in New Jersey. This is a team It's just they deserve a chance to play in a conference, and I'm hoping that they can get to 500 and at least be in a postseason tournament this year. That's what we're rooting for.
And you mean, look, Damon Lynn is only a sophomore, so I'd love to see this kid have a shot at an NCAA bid before his career is over. 2 more seasons for that.
Yeah.
But I mean, so getting back to the whole point of this, we are not here making fun of NJIT. We are here because we really are rooting for this team, and we've been doing so, in the background a lot in prior years. We decided to make it big this year, and lo and behold, they came through for us and got that win at Michigan.
Right.
We were discussing their schedule. If they win out their entire schedule, they would be 24-5. 4 of those wins would be non-D1 wins, so 20-5 against D1. Would include a win at Villanova along with a win at Michigan. They do have 2 bad losses to UMass Lowell, a loss to an Albany team that's not going to be that great at the end of the season. So that may not even be enough for an NCAA tournament consideration, although if they did win out, I think you and I agree that they would get some discussion in the committee room.
I mean, a lot of discussion, I would think. I mean, who would have road wins against Nova, who we believe to be a 1 seed in Michigan? I don't want to devalue NJIT's win, but Michigan's not looking so hot right now. Honestly, I would be disappointed. There's too many moving parts. There's 350 teams. You don't really know what everybody else is going to do. If they won out and didn't get in, I'd be disappointed. But it's very possible that they wouldn't. But that's pie in the sky right now.
The problem they're going to have is they're going to be sitting there with one of the worst strength of schedules, because other than the Nova game, the Michigan game, the St. John's game that they lost to start the season, those will probably be their only 3 top 100 games. Although you could then say, well, they're 2-1 against the top 100, maybe against the top 50, and that's a winning record. But if we were looking at that same type of strength of schedule for somebody whose conference said SEC on it or Big 12 on it, we would be yelling up and down that they don't even belong being discussed in the room. So that's what you got to do, though. You've got to take these profiles and not give any extra weight on them also, just because you are an independent or because you are from a smaller conference.
Right.
With that, David, I wanted to move on. Actually, we didn't discuss this here before we started, but this is the Under the Radar show, and the definition of an Under the Radar teams are teams outside of the major conferences and outside of the top 25. So the major conferences: ACC, Big 10, Big 12, Pac-12, SEC. Also the Big East, the A10, the Mountain West. We consider those conferences to be major conferences that normally get multiple teams in. They're not under the radar conferences. Teams like Gonzaga, Northern Iowa, Wichita State that are in the top 25, also not under the radar teams.
Right.
David, the American Athletic Conference, I'm starting to wonder if they need to graduate down.
I think so. I mean, you might want to transition. UConn will most likely end up safely inside the bubble. Temple is doing better than expected this year, at least better than what I expected after being abysmal last year. SMU, huge disappointment. Cincinnati, only 1 loss, but against just a very weak schedule, not the kind of out-of-conference schedule you need to be playing when you're in a league that provides so few opportunities. It is really getting close, and there are some under-the-radar conferences, particularly the West Coast, albeit BYU has been a little underwhelming this year, and even the Missouri Valley, that are outperforming, by a long shot, the American Athletic Conference.
Yeah, just to throw some numbers out there, in terms of strength of schedule, just who you scheduled, the American Athletic Conference has only 2 teams with top 50 strength of schedules right now. UConn, who has a great strength of schedule, number 6 overall. SMU, number 23. That's it. The only other top 100 strength of schedule is Temple's. You look at, you can't look at RPI at this point in the season. The numbers are completely meaningless. But you can look at the KenPom ratings. They do have some meaning at this point in the season. They have 2 top 50 teams. SMU at 43, which is a bubble team rating.
Yeah.
And you that 9-10 seed type of rating. The Missouri Valley is a lot better than that. Like you just said, the West Coast is better than that.
Yeah. So
and you look at the names too: Tulane, Central Florida, South Florida, Tulsa. East Carolina. These are teams that we've discussed as under the radar teams in the
I know.
past.
So we may need to, make a drop down move
I
and
know
dump that.
Lee
Yeah.
Delvecchio will not be happy that we discussed this, but that's
Yes.
but
Can we
just
rank Connecticut, or are they still in the rankings?
they're not nationally ranked, but they're not so they could be in our top tens, which is
Yes.
where we want to go next. If we did graduate the American Dive, which is kind of where I was going with that. Is should
Yeah.
UConn be in my top 10 or not?
Yeah. And I don't know. Maybe they shouldn't be. I mean, I think they would be in mine. I don't know if they'd be number one.
I don't think they would be number one. I think they'd probably be my top five, though, among
Yeah.
the teams that I'm going to have here for my under the radar list. Speaking of teams graduating one way or the other, though, Northern Iowa, who you and I have been really high on so far this season, has graduated off of our top 10 list. They are now nationally ranked,
Yep.
deservedly.
And very deservedly so.
Uh, but let's get right into it, David. I think we agree on the top two teams, although I don't think we agree on order. My number
Yeah.
one is Harvard. My number two is Old Dominion.
Yeah, and I have those two in reverse order. I just think Old Dominion's done a little bit more. They've looked a little bit better. Harvard is a very good team. You could easily make a case for them, but Harvard doesn't really bring it every night. I think Old Dominion has. They do have the one loss, but other than that, this is an Old Dominion team. I believe in our latest bracket projections we had them in the 8-9 range. And I know it's early and everything's erratic, and you could make one case that a team should be a 3 or 4 seed, and then another that they shouldn't be in at all at this point. But I think Old Dominion, we're not even going to be thinking of them as a bubble team by the time it's over. I mean, this is really strong, and the same with Harvard. Although with Harvard there is no bubble, it's just the Ivy League standings.
Yeah, I mean, with Harvard, it was. I'm actually surprised. I've looked the last 2 weeks; they're not even getting any top 25 votes, which really kind of shocks me. They do have, and they lost that game at the start of the season to Holy Cross, but since then they have wins over UMass, they have a win over Northeastern, they have a win that I think they're going to get a lot more credit for in the committee room than
Yeah.
national voters will when they went and won at Vermont. Vermont is not going to lose very many games at home this season. Harvard went up there and won. They've actually got this whole next week off as well. They're not playing until December 21st when they go to Virginia, which should be a great game. Hopefully it'll be a great game,
Yeah.
or it could be a blowout. But yeah, I really like this Harvard team. Old Dominion second. My third best team, I have moved up big time despite a blowout loss last week. That's the Green Bay Phoenix. They got pounded at Georgia State, then they turned around and they went to Miami and they won a game.
Yeah.
Very impressive with that win.
Really impressive. That is the kind of win that gets you inside the bubble. They had one of those last year. Well, they had two. They had the win at home against Virginia, but it was at home. This one was on the road. I know Virginia got a 1 seed, but I still think beating a 3 or a 4 seed on the road is better than beating a 1 seed at home, although both are good. But they still missed the field, albeit barely. When you saw the last S curve, they were one of the next 2 or 3 teams that would have gotten in. But is this enough, Chad, in your opinion, to offset some of the problems they've had? There's nothing really, really bad. Like losing to Whiskey isn't bad, but I don't know. Losing that badly to Georgia State is really going to work against them.
They did lose badly to Georgia State. They also have 2 wins, though, over teams that are on my top 10 right now that we're going to get to in a few minutes, both Evansville and Florida Gulf Coast. They have a win over a top 25 Miami team, and they're going to have another shot at Georgia State. That's the big game I'm looking at, December 27th. Georgia State will be going to Green Bay. They get the split by winning that game. That kind of neutralizes that first loss to Georgia State. And
Right.
Georgia State is in fact, the very next team. They're 4th on my list right now. So
Yeah, as they are on mine. So really like this Georgia State team. I don't know, like, how could you not be impressed with them the other night? I mean, good grief, what a show!
to do that to the team that beat Miami the next night,
Yeah.
a couple of nights later, Georgia State's only losses were at Iowa State and at Colorado State.
Yeah.
Very understandable losses. Now they are going to have to get a big win. One game that we're looking at coming up next Wednesday, a week from tonight, this might be the place that we're setting you here, David. In fact,
Yeah.
Georgia State is going to be at Old Dominion.
That's going to be a good one. A real good one.
Now they're playing that in Norfolk. They're not playing at the Norfolk Scope though, which was kind of disappointing. I'd love to one of our favorite arenas there with the MEAC tournament, but
Yeah.
but yeah, Green Bay is at Old Dominion next week. We'll get to our previews of the upcoming games. My fifth team, I'm sorry, that was Georgia State at Old Dominion. My fifth team on my list is a team that I don't think you ranked at all, David. That's
No.
Eastern Michigan. They came out of nowhere. They have not been in my rankings at all yet this season. But they did the same thing that Green Bay did. I'm sorry, that NJIT did. And they went and they won at Michigan.
Yeah, it is a great win. They only have one loss. I'm trying to think of who it was against.
Green Bay's. I'm sorry. Excuse me. Eastern Michigan's only loss was at Dayton.
Yeah.
A very tough place to win at.
It really is. No shame in that. There is more, and like there's no bad on their profile, and there is the good win at Michigan. I just haven't been as impressed. Like, in looking at the rest of who I got, I just all thought that at this moment they seem better than Eastern Michigan. And although watching BYU get drummed out of their own arena right now might change my mind. But yeah, I mean, Eastern Michigan is on my radar. I'm aware of them. How can you ignore them after they've done what they've done? But I mean, other than that, I thought they've beaten up on cream puffs even by under the radar standards, and I just didn't get them in there yet.
Yeah, I mean, their strength of schedule is ridiculous. They've only played those 2 road games at Dayton and at Michigan. 3 of their 7 home games were against non-D1 competition. The D1 teams they played were Oakland, Youngstown, UNC Greensboro, Longwood. They played a bunch of jokes, and I think we discussed them last week when we were going through some of the undefeated teams and said, hey, this record is a joke, but I don't think it's a joke anymore when you win at Michigan. Although maybe if Michigan can't turn this around after these 2 back-to-back losses, that Michigan win won't look that good.
Right.
Eastern Michigan is at Michigan State next Wednesday night. Another interesting game. Obviously, if they win that game, they're going to be right in both of our top 10s.
Absolutely. They go there. Then if they go there and win that, I mean, they are in our top 10, and even more importantly, like in the bubble discussion. I mean, you get 2 wins like that, and your only loss is at Dayton. You got a good profile.
Yeah. My next team up is a team that we're watching right now as we record this, BYU. So this Utah-BYU final was not factored into this game at all. Right now, I've seen BYU's down almost 10 points.
Coming back though.
But they're trying to make a bit of a comeback here.
Yeah.
I think you have BYU right up in this area as well.
Yeah, I had them at 6. One of the teams, like my number 5 team, and we'll need a score update on this as well. Louisiana Tech, they lost their opener. They lost really early in the year at Temple. It turns out Temple isn't great, but they're not horrendous either, like I thought. It was a little bit of a harder road game, and they haven't lost since then. Now, having said that, they are sweating out. I'm following it here. Louisiana Lafayette.
They're actually down to Louisiana Lafayette on the road by 11 points with about 6 minutes left as we record this.
Oh, Lord.
I've got La Tech there in my list here at 7 also. If they lose this game, I don't see them being the top 10 next week.
And this team has such a small margin for error. When this team is on and clicking, they are really, really, really good. It's a team that I thought would even come close to the rankings at some point, if not get into them. But the problem is they don't always bring it. And this is not, I mean, this isn't just somebody that sneaks up on them. There is a little bit of rivalry within that state, and they're just going there and just not showing up at all. Real disappointing for a team that really should be better.
And this is a team, we've talked about how weak their schedule is, how they were not able to get those big opponents on it. Yeah. You have no margin for error with a game like this if you have that, and you can't afford this loss. Unless they make a great comeback here in the last 5 minutes of this game, this could be disastrous for Louisiana Tech. They may need to win an automatic bid at that point.
Yeah, maybe so.
My next team up is Florida Gulf Coast.
Yeah.
I'm really impressed with this Gulf Coast team. They're still sitting there with only the 1 loss to Green Bay in the finals of that tournament, the Gulf Coast Showcase. They're they've got a couple non-conference games coming up here. Also, they got a 3-game trip actually, beginning December 23rd to Iona, to Xavier, and to Pitt. That take it. We've discussed it. Take 2 or 3 out of those games, and
Yeah.
they can pretty much punch their tickets right then and there.
Right, because their league, while weak, it's a league that we're expecting them to just run completely roughshod over. Upstate has looked a little bit good every now and then. They might have trouble being on the road there, but there is nobody in the ASUN, I don't think, that's going to.
I'm going to disagree very slightly there. I kind of jump ahead a little bit here. I gave a few honorable mentions this week. One of the honorable mentions I gave was to North Florida, also out of the ASUN. North Florida has 3 losses on the season. One was at South Carolina, where they got blown out. One at Northern Iowa, where they got blown out. They lost by 3 points at Northwestern, where I believe Northwestern hit a 3 at the buzzer to beat them, to a 2-point loss. And then this week they went and won at Purdue. This North Florida team could be dangerous. Keep an eye on it. If somebody's going to knock off Gulf Coast, that's my pick.
Okay, good pick. So moving on down, BYU we've already discussed. Eastern Washington, I really, really like this team. I don't know what they have on the horizon, but I mean, are they going to get chances? And again, this is one of the questions we always ask, especially in the out-of-conference. Can this team play their way inside the bubble?
Eastern Washington will have a couple chances. They have a game at Washington coming up December 14th. They have a game at Cal coming up December 19th. That is it in terms of big-time games for their non-conference schedule. They have to go to San Francisco. They have to go to Sam Houston State. In conference, I mean, they really look like they're head and shoulders above everybody else. I do expect Weber to be competitive there. Montana possibly, maybe Sacramento State, but they've been pretty disappointing so far.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I've really liked this Eastern Washington team. The win at Indiana that everyone was so excited about, I really wasn't. I mean, I thought it was a good win for them, but it turns out, I know that the final score was 20 last night, but Indiana has looked better this year than I thought they would be. They've looked like a tournament caliber team at many points, and maybe they are a tournament caliber team, which really increases the value of that Eastern Washington win in Bloomington. Maybe, and if they can get Washington, I would imagine that's going to be a showcase game for them. I mean, at least on the local level, Washington's been much better than expected. If they can get them or Cal, who knows? We'll see. But really like this Eastern Washington team. If you haven't seen them play, it was not just a situation of them being on that night in Bloomington. They're really good.
I agree. A couple other games here. A couple other teams here. Actually, my last team on my list, my number 10 team, I've got the Evansville Purple Aces, the 3rd best team out of the Missouri Valley Conference. The other 2 are both in the top 25. Evansville went to Belmont last night in what was our under-the-radar game of the day. They picked up a good road win. Now, Belmont's best player was out for the game, and you gotta concede that as a bit of a point. But they still were able to go in there in what should have been a hostile environment and won the game. Although there was a little bit of an attendance issue, I think, also for Belmont.
It was really. I mean, it was just one of those things. You log on. This is Belmont. They have 1 loss. They're at home against a really good team, and you turn on the game and you wonder where all the people are.
That was really disappointing. Belmont has had a pretty good following, pretty good fan base, and nobody showed up. Now, I guess it's finals week here, and maybe some of the students are starting to get ready to go home for winter break, but still would have been nice to see a little better support there in the stands at Belmont. And so, along with Colorado State, we're calling you guys out.
Yeah, Colorado State's absurd. I don't understand what's going on with that. Anyway, I had Eastern Michigan out. I wrestled back and forth with my 10 spot between SFA and Yale, and although they didn't get the wins that they needed, I still am going with SFA at number 10.
Yeah, SFA, well, I'll give them, they do have a good KenPom number so far this season, a lot better than they had last year this time. They're sitting there at number 60 right now, but they're just not going to have the chances for any more big wins, and that's, again, it goes to their non-conference scheduling.
Right, and again, they got the one at they got the one at Memphis. They got one against somebody else that was fairly decent anyway. But this is it. I mean, really, the best they can do is to avoid bad losses the rest of the way, and that's kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, well, their other decent one was they had a home window against Long Beach State. That
That's
took
right,
them
Long
out.
Beach. Yeah,
They crushed them.
and nothing against Long Beach. Beating Long Beach at home is not the kind of win that impresses the committee to make them think, bubble team. So essentially with them, all the hay is in the barn, and all they can really do now is avoid bad losses. They can't improve their profile anymore.
All right. I did have a couple honorable mentions. I mentioned North Florida. I also gave an honorable mention out there to St. Mary's, a team that we still don't have too many answers on. We're going to get them. They kind of front-loaded their schedule with a lot of home games, and now they're finally going to go out on the road. They have not actually played a road game yet. They're playing this weekend at Creighton. They've also got trips to St. John's, home game against Northeastern. So we are going to start learning a little bit more about them soon. And I also gave an honorable mention to the University of the Sciences.
This is a great honorable mention.
Who went, really under the radar because they're not even in Division I, but they went and won at Drexel. I mean, cross-town rival, both in Philadelphia, but won at Drexel. Very bad loss for the Dragons.
Yeah, I'm starting to think the Dragons may be out of the picture.
Yeah. Anyone else you had out there on your list, David? Did we get them all?
We got all mine other than Colorado State, who you touched on. Colorado State is ineligible. They're in a multi-bid conference, or what we have deemed a predominantly multi-bid conference most of the years. The reason they're under the radar is because they're undefeated, and even when they're playing good teams at home, no one seems to be aware of it. This is really kind of suspicious. We mentioned it, Belmont. This is a program, football and basketball, that has historically been very well supported. When Tim Miles was there, I mean, they were sold out every single night. Now, again, they were really bad for a really long time. I think they were 4 or 5 years in a row where they finished outside the RPI top 250, and attendance certainly waned. But once he got them going, and even still under the new coach, I remember him from getting fired for Kansas State for partying with me, but I can't remember his name.
So you're asking for the current coach at Colorado State?
Yeah. No. Yeah. It's the old. Oh God, what's his name? Oh, I can see him.
You're talking about Larry Eustace.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Larry Eustace. Who? But anyway, like his first year, they were a top 25 team and they were sold out every night. How are they undefeated at home against a good UTEP team and no one's at the game? And where were their fans during football season? Anyway, so under the radar, even though they shouldn't be. Someone print in the paper or get an all-out bulletin, take to social media, make them realize their team's good. Maybe they're unaware.
Well, they are playing at Colorado actually as we speak, and just we can give a quick score update there. Even they're actually right into the game with Colorado.
Right, it's 30-27 just before the half.
Just before the half, and just I got to mention this real quickly. I don't know if we'll be done before this final score, but right now, as we're recording this, with a minute left in the game, Incarnate Word is down 2 at Nebraska. Could be will be the greatest upset in Incarnate Word history.
It's not going to. Oh boy, what's happened to my man Tim? My man Tim. Oh man.
But we did want to move in and preview. Maybe we'll get a final for everybody before that game, before we go done. But we do want to preview the games coming up over the next week. Kind of a light schedule the next couple of nights. Thursday, December 11th, UC Santa Barbara has a home game with San Diego. Belmont has a home game with Wright State. Those are probably your best under-the-radar games. Not really a big under-the-radar day. Maybe the DePaul at George Washington, even though neither of those teams qualify, but DePaul is definitely an under-the-radar type of team, sitting there at 6-1 so far this season.
Yeah, I still don't believe it. If they win at George Washington, they'll have my attention.
There's only 4 games total on the entire college basketball schedule Friday night, and the one that most interests us is G is going to be traveling to Worcester to take on Holy Cross, the
Yeah.
team that beat Harvard. It will be streamed on the Patriot League website, so go ahead and watch that game. It could
Watch
be
that
exciting
game.
and another big win for our team.
We need big ratings because it's not up against very much. So, yeah, definitely going to watch that one on Friday.
Saturday, there's a lot of good games, a fair number of good games on. One of the games that I'm in the early at noon on Saturday that I'm a little bit interested in here is Wichita State is going to be at Detroit. Detroit already picked up a good win at Toledo this year. Only have 2 losses, not that bad. They win this game, obviously they may be on our list next week as well.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Um,
So big one there.
But the real big one, St. Mary's, who we just mentioned, is going to be traveling to Creighton. Creighton, again, not an under-the-radar team, but St. Mary's, this is their first road test. They only have 1 loss to Boise State so far.
Right, and this is going to be a huge test.
A little upset alert here, potentially. Grand Canyon is going to be at Indiana on Saturday.
Oh, I was right with you up until about 25 hours ago. That would be a huge upset, but I just don't think they're good enough. Indiana, I thought they sucked. They don't suck. They really don't. Amazingly.
A rivalry game here coming up on Saturday. We were going to discuss the Northern Iowa at VCU. We actually can't because neither of those teams are under the radar anymore. But rivalry game here: North Dakota at North Dakota State.
Yeah.
And we haven't discussed North Dakota at all this year. They still don't have a nickname, David.
So they're the North Dakotas, I believe is how they're actually classified.
Yeah.
Which is
under state law, it's not until next season will they be allowed to get themselves a new nickname. They are no longer the Fighting Sioux. We're not allowed to mention that, so pretend I didn't say it. New Mexico State at Oral Roberts, our pick to win the WAC against one of the top teams in the Summit League. Could be a good one here on Saturday.
Yeah, should be. Looking forward to that one too. Again, neither of those teams are really probably close to the bubble, but it should be a good matchup.
Right. BYU, who's coming off of the Holy War against Utah here, has another in-state game at Weber State on Saturday, so maybe some letdown for them there too.
Right, and again, part of the Utah schools, BYU used to all play each other. Utah does not play. I don't think they play Utah State or Weber anymore. But BYU they're going to go up there. They've had some trouble there in the past, but I don't expect them to have any trouble on Saturday.
Right. Game that I'm really looking forward to, the last game of the night on Saturday, Army, a team that we've been following. They've been near the border of some of our top 10s all season. They're at USC. Big, long road trip here for the Black Knights.
Yeah, and God, I would love it. Oh, I would love it if they went out there and won that one. Oh, please, let that happen.
Coming up on Sunday from the Under the Radar games, our adopted team NJIT is going to be continuing the road trip. They're going to be going to play at LIU Brooklyn. Definitely a winnable game for them. A lot more winnable game than the Holy Cross game.
Right. They've already beaten one team from Brooklyn this week. So.
Louisiana Tech, who's going to be fresh off a very disappointing loss to Louisiana Lafayette that's about to go final in a few moments here, is going to be at Syracuse. Maybe they looked past the game tonight and look forward to the Syracuse game.
Well, that's part of the problem. You have to win the small ones too, otherwise they become big losses.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I definitely think, regardless of what happened tonight, they are good enough to win at Syracuse. They really are. It would not shock me at all if they did. And then you're asking the question, what the hell happened against Louisiana Lafayette?
The Wofford Terriers, who do have a nice win over Iona already, are at NC State on Sunday. That could be a danger game for the Wolfpack.
Very much so, especially since NC State has a tendency to go brain dead against teams like Wofford that are under the radar, that are good but don't have the brand name. That one's interesting. It's a winnable game for Wofford.
One other game I want to throw out here for Sunday. We already mentioned this one briefly. Eastern Washington, that big road test at Washington.
Yeah,
That could be a real good game, or it could be
really
a
looking forward to that one.
well,
I
the
mean,
way Washington played against San Diego State, that could be a blowout.
yeah. Wow. So again, Washington much better than expected. I mean, probably as recently as a week ago, I would have told you Eastern Washington could really go in there and beat them. But Washington, at least, they're a lot better than I thought they would be. If Eastern Washington wins that, you're probably are talking about them being inside the bubble. But it is a tall order. Should be fun though.
A couple games getting into the following week. Not much on the schedule Monday night. Mike Davis's Texas Southern team is at Gonzaga to be blasted. But one game here on Monday's schedule that might not be on many of your schedules, Missouri State at Oral Roberts. That game was actually scheduled for last Saturday. There was a power outage in Tulsa. They had to cancel the game. They didn't want to wait too long for the power to come back on because the Missouri State students had finals this week. They just announced today they've rescheduled that for Monday, December 15th.
And this is fantastic. And I don't want to falsely report this, but it is my understanding that Frank Haith was in charge of the power that day, and he just screwed it up, and so.
All right. Coming up on Tuesday night, game that I think could be a good one here. Belmont is at VCU. Hopefully they have Bradshaw back and healthy again for that game. It could be a good one. If he is not, they could be in a lot of trouble. Although this VCU team's been a little disappointing. We've discussed that.
Right. They have been, but I mean, if you look at their whole history, not just with especially with Shaka, they don't really start playing until now anyway. Like they'll always start off 3-3, 3-4, and then rattle off really long win streaks. So I think VCU's fine.
Right. And then just the couple other games we want to throw out there for coming up on Wednesday. We did mention already the Georgia State Old Dominion game. Also, Florida State's hosting that North Florida team that I mentioned is getting an honorable mention earlier. I think that the way this Florida State team has been playing, they could be in a little bit of trouble next week as well.
Yeah, the Ospreys.
Also, New Mexico State at Baylor that night. There's another game that could be a little interesting. And
Baylor's good, man.
And in a battle of transitional teams, Incarnate Word will be at Grand Canyon.
That's a fun one. The transitional can the transitional teams play each other in a tournament? Is that allowed, or are they just?
They could. It would have to count as a regular season game.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I just meant as a postseason CIT type tournament. I guess they can't. That would be fun to watch if they could.
Yeah, I do not believe that the NCAA would allow that.
Right.
Any other topics we want to discuss here tonight?
Yes. Incarnate Word has just gone ahead with less than 3 seconds to go.
So Incarnate Word may be coming off of a win over Nebraska, going up against a Grand Canyon team that could be coming off of a win over Indiana. So
speaking of yes, and like you said, this is a transitional program in their second year out of the Southland. How damn it! Oh, this is going to be very, very, very damaging for Nebraska. Crippling.
Well, I will throw this out there then. If Incarnate Word, I mean, just the way Incarnate Word plays, whether they do win this game or not, February 16th, they are going to be at Stephen F. Austin. I'm sorry, they're going to be playing Stephen F. Austin, and again on March 2nd, Stephen F. Austin will be hosting them. They'll be hosting them on February 16th. SFA could have a couple dangerous trap games there in conference play coming up.
Right. So we'll see. I'm sorry, there's 3.7 seconds left. They put a little bit of time back on the clock. When you're 10 miles, you're able to do that. But I guess, I don't know if you're 10 miles can't seem to beat Incarnate Word.
10 miles.
But I'm just so excited for our Highlanders. They are the people's team, the team of the people, the NJIT Highlanders.
All right, well, go Highlanders, and God bless America and our independent teams. And have a good night, everybody.